The topics are those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Triversity Talk. I am Stephen Bloomer-Teague.
And I am Wendy Stewart-Kaplan, and I'm very excited about our guest. From the moment I met her, I just adored her. Her energy, her spirit. I met her at an event with the Imperial Court. She's one of the new members, as I am. She's a terrific performer. She's a dancer, a director, a photographer, an advocate in the LGBTQ community for 45 years, and living her truth for the last 2 years. Without further ado, I'd like you all to give a warm welcome to Dolores Degage Hopkins.
Hello.
Hello, Dolores. How are
We'll
you?
start with the middle name is Degage.
Oh, I did the best I could, Dolores. You know, when it was rolling off of my
You
tongue.
did great in the rehearsal.
I was about to say, when you're under pressure, all bets are off. You know?
Everybody knows one thing about me, Dolores, and it's in my films and everything. I screw up names. I just do. And it's like, yes, could you announce yourself for everybody? It's a beautiful name. Please go for it.
Dolores Degage Hopkins.
Degage, right.
Degage.
Where does dégagé come from?
Degage is French word. It's from ballet. It's a ballet. It's the third thing you do at the bar. You do your pliés, your tendus, and then you follow with your dégages.
Okay.
I've used that. Dolores Degage was my drag name for years and years. So.
Gosh, releve would have been so much easier for me.
Releve. I mean, really? Dolores Releve. I don't think so.
Dolores Releve, Hopkins. Yes, welcome to our show. So nice to have you here with us.
This is fun. This is great. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm so excited that you could make this time for us, because tell us what's going on. You're everywhere for Pride this year.
It was lockdown for everybody. I did get to teach in real time at the studio. We were very careful, but for events, I mean, as everybody else, we were shut down. And I mean, when we picked back up, it was full steam ahead. We've been like going full tilt boogie. It's crazy. But yeah, June's been crazy. And this will be my final weekend of June. And I've got two events tomorrow. I'm on the board of directors for the New Haven Pride Center, and a local brewery has come out with a beer for the New Haven Pride Center. So there's going to be.
I love that.
So that's happening.
Beer specifically for your Pride Center. Stephen, we need a beer for a Pride Center.
Exactly, you do.
Well, I tell you who we should pursue on that.
Somebody too.
Sarah
One of our
maybe
staff designed the label, so it's fantastic.
Maybe Sarah Hallenquist will make a beer for our center. We'll have
That's a very direct hint, Stephen.
She's got her own brand, Dolores. It's called Dyke Beer, and she's out of Brooklyn. She's been on the show.
That's perfect.
And yeah, we should definitely talk to her about that. See, you gave us an idea, and you're only on for a few minutes. I love you already. I'll steal anything you want to give me.
I aim to please. Oh,
I'm always looking for
these are
merchandise.
my Pride nails.
Oh my gosh, these are fabulous.
I don't know which way to go on this damn camera. There we go.
Your nails are gorgeous. I don't even want to show you mine. I'm embarrassed. So what will they be doing for New Haven Pride? How do they celebrate Pride?
Well, there's been all kinds of stuff going on. Like Sunday, I'm doing a fundraiser for the New Haven Pride Center at Sol de Cuba Cafe in New Haven. I'm doing 2 brunches, and the proceeds are going to the Pride Center. And I've got the Imperial Sovereign Court of all Connecticut. The performers are court members, And it's one of their beneficiaries this year, so they willingly donated their performances. So that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, that is a beautiful thing.
And then
You're
that night, there's a huge
advocate for so long. How long have you been using your ability to perform to raise money?
Wow. I would say the performing aspect of it started 15, 20 years ago.
Amazing.
Before that, I did drag shows and things, but it was not really specifically for a nonprofit. It was more when I ran a nonprofit that I founded for 27 years. So it kind of just started falling into place, the understanding of the power
Right.
of using performance art to raise money.
Power of performance, right?
Right.
We talk about
it. People want to be entertained, and if you entertain them, they are much easier to open their wallet.
I agree. And the more drinks you ply them with, the deeper they'll dig. And you know it. What was your organization called? What was your non-for-profit?
New England Ballet Company. It was based in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Wow. That's incredible. So your background, from what I know about you, I feel like the little I know about you and the everything I know about you, because you're that kind of person.
Yeah.
How did you get started in ballet?
In high school, I loved musical theater, and my goal was to be a Broadway performer. And so they were like, well, you have to be able to dance a little bit, and you have to be able to sing a little bit, and you have to be able to act for sure. So it was like triple threat, right? So, and then they were like, well, I grew up in a small town in Texas, and you have to get rid of the Texas accent because you got to be able to control it. So I spent 2 years getting rid of it, and now I wish I had a little of it back. But if you get me mad, I'll diphthong.
That Texas, what is it? A drawl? No, Stephen, the South is a drawl.
It's diphthong.
Drawl. It's a diphthong. Drawl. It's like my father would go, Dolores. He would put, like, if there's an O, he'd put 5 O's.
Dolores.
Exactly. Dolores. Yeah. It's so funny. But I came out when I was 15 in a small town in Texas, and that was a long time ago.
Okay, so I got to stop there. That's really wild. Okay, because up in the Northeast here, everyone's got their coming out story, right? But I grew up in New York, and I tell people this all the time. I grew up in New York City. Most of my friends didn't even really come out; they were out. It was.
Or you just lived out.
They lived out. There was just not anything anyone would think about. You just did it, right?
Not in the Midwest, and not in
Texas.
It was very different. Yeah. I mean, like when I came out I got outed. I didn't come out. I had to come out.
How did you get outed?
Well, you really want to hear this story?
I want to hear this story.
I was supposed to be at the homecoming dance, and I was out with a older gentleman. I'll just say that. And and I had to show my face at the dance, or so that's where I was supposed to be. So I jumped out of his little Fiat over the top of it, being all cute, leaned over and kissed him with his beard, and turned around, and 4 school board members were standing right there, like 20 feet from me, saw me do this. And my father was on school board; he just wasn't there.
Oh God, yeah, this was a big outing.
Small town, and my mother was a school teacher in a small town. My father was the postmaster and on the school board. So I went in, and just I got to go home because they're gonna call. That's just the South. They're gonna call and tell my parents. So I got home and got them out of bed and sat them down and told them, and the phone rang, and I thought my father was going to kill me, and it turned out he defended me, and told them to. I heard him curse for the first time that night. He told them to effing mind their own business and hung up on them.
Wow.
And then my mother freaked out. She couldn't really deal with it, and they switched roles. Like my father became very nurturing for the rest of my life, and my mother has had a problem with it. For the last 45 years.
Wow, that's a lot.
Now, if we're can we quickly fast forward 24 years? Somehow she's okay with the transitioning. I'm not sure I understand. Well, Dolores is her sister's name, for one thing. She's talking to me again. She's written me letters. We've had great conversations.
Since you decided to transition.
Somehow me being female was better than me being gay male. I don't want to figure it out really because
you know what, Dolores, we've heard everything on
I'm
here.
enjoying having a relationship with her again. So
Yeah, and that's what I love. I love that you're talking about this. Stephen, I'll tell you, we've heard everything.
yeah,
I've never heard this before. Your mother deals better with you transitioning than having
absolutely.
a gay son.
My two sisters didn't realize she knew. My nephew took it upon himself to tell her. And I'm going everywhere. He's actually coming to visit me in a couple of weeks with his 4 kids. So they can meet their, I'm going to say it, great aunt Dolores.
I love
Aunt Dolores. Great, really?
Hey, I'm a great uncle, so.
Well, there you go. Oh, good. You're young. So that makes me feel better. So, yeah. And they were at lunch and she said, my two sisters said she was eating her lunch and just in conversation was like, so I hear I have 3 daughters now. I was like, she said, what? So she surprised all of us with her acceptance of it.
Right, which is, you know what, I love hearing this because it shows you it's never too late. Right. And I'm sure for you, it's to have, not everybody gets acceptance, and we'll probably have somebody comment in there that will talk about that tonight. That's the hardest thing, especially when
I've had acceptance, and I've also lost a huge portion of my life. That's a whole other story, but so it is what it is, and
it is what it is, right?
And I'm happier now than I've ever been in my entire life, and
it's so great.
It's great. It's worth all of whatever's the negative that's happened.
So for many years, once you came out, you lived your life as a gay man, and what was that like for you?
My college, I was I was an activist. I was marching, and I was in Columbia, Missouri. Would have been 78, 79. So it was all still illegal. Everything about it was illegal. But there was that was a college town. I was in a small fine arts college, but the University of Missouri had started a club, and they wanted to just walk down Main Street holding hands.
How fabulous!
Just be able to hold hands, not do anything else. That was it. No big parade. Just make the statement that a man and a man could hold hands, and a woman could hold hands. And I remember being pelted with broken beer bottles. Pelted to the point that we were all bloodied by the time we were done. And the police were there, and we thought, they're here to protect. They weren't there to protect
nothing.
Us.
Right.
They were there.
What year are we talking, Dolores?
78, maybe.
Things were very different in the late 70s. Things were very, very different in the late 70s.
Like I said, it was all basically illegal.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in small towns like what you're describing.
Right. I mean,
so how did that affect?
The laws didn't start changing for a long time.
How did that affect you as an activist, being in,
that just made me more determined. I was infuriated that they would take such offense at 2 guys holding hands. It was so innocent.
Yeah, totally innocent.
I mean, now look at our parades. Come on. I mean, it's like,
I know.
Deal with it.
Yeah, now
it's certainly better. It's better. It's better. People might say it's not, but it is better. It's better than 40 years ago for sure.
Oh
my God! Because of people like you who went out there and got pelted with beer bottles. I think it's for people knowing.
Well, yeah, and it took a long time. I mean, I remember the grueling process of marriage equality, and it happened. And now people that are like the youth coming out now, they just expect it. It's a part of their reality. So.
Well, yeah, and certainly, things in that spectrum, that LGBTQ spectrum, gender fluidity, queer, there's all different levels now to encompass everybody. And the time you're talking about, none of that existed,
I don't even know that the word gay was, when I was in high school, it was queer or homo.
Right.
So when I came out, I didn't come out as gay. I came out as homosexual to my parents. You used words like that. I mean, I don't think gay was far behind, but it wasn't something used in my small town. I never heard that slur. Nobody ever said, "Oh, you're gay." They said you're queer, or you're, all the other lovely ones.
Queer.
Queer was not positive back then.
Right.
I was such a brainy kid that I was like if I got called, when they call me queer, I'd be like, you know what? Thank you very much, because queer means different, and that means I'm different than you, and I'm happy with that. So they didn't know what to do with me, because I would just talk them off I would talk my way out of getting beat up numerous times, or thrown in a locker or whatever.
But don't you think that's the performer in you? You knew how to talk the talk.
Well, that's true.
You know, I found that talking to other performers that have experienced that from small towns, same kind of thing. You know, they were performing in high school, so they kind of fell into a different category. Did you experience bullying?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. More verbal. I like I said, the physical stuff I was able to push away. And my family was known. My mother was a school teacher. My father was on school board. I was at school before and after. I was they would have gotten in a lot of trouble if they'd actually physically accosted me.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So
it's wonderful.
I think they knew that, but because I had other friends that they were not so lucky. I mean, they got beat up and, you know. I had three friends in high school, 3 gay friends in high school, mostly through theater. One was not. But it was like, you know, I think back and I think about them, and I think by the end of the 1990s, they were all gone. They'd all died of AIDS. So.
They had all gotten AIDS of the original group from high school. Wow.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, like the show Pose. I've watched the first 2 seasons, and I'm like, I just can't watch another episode. When I watch that show, because I lived in New York in the 87 and 88. Yeah. I actually have a visceral reaction. I can smell it. I can smell what death smelled like.
Dolores, I would say it's the same for me. That is my world, and everybody I know watched Pose. Guess what? I couldn't watch it.
I had such anxiety. Now I have heard since seen that the season 3, everybody gets a happy ending. So
oh really?
I might have to watch it for that purpose, because I was like, I can't watch them die. I can't watch them get killed off, or
because it's so real. And then when
I've heard the happy ending, well, I'd like to see that. Kudos for the writers for doing that.
Yeah. I think Ryan Murphy realizes especially well how important it is for our community to have happy endings, because
it's like true.
When
how long in motion pictures have we been the murderer, the murdered,
always. And
always.
Especially when AIDS is involved, it always deals with death.
Right.
And it's great to have.
So I was very happy when I read that, and I thought, okay, I can go back and watch it now, maybe.
Thank you for sharing that, because now I will actually watch it. I'm the only person that you'll meet that I just couldn't do it.
I got through part of it, and then I just had this reaction that was. I mean, I've lost 2 partners. One died of AIDS in the mid '80s, and one died of cancer just 6 years ago. And when you've held 2 people that took their last breath in your arms, you just can't go there.
You can't go there.
Smell or anything can make you just
because
be there again. And it's taken me so much healing to even be able to just say what I just said and not be crying. Right? It takes a long time.
You are such a survivor. I mean, things that the bio doesn't give you. This.
Yeah, so Dolores, I'm curious. Okay, so we've got you in the small town in Texas. You go away to college. I guess that was the first time you left your town.
Yes. The interesting story with college is my parents actually saved my life, because they had told me if I got straight A's for 12 years, my whole life, if you get straight A's for 12 years, you can pick any college you want. Well, I picked Parsons in New York City. I was a painter and a drawer as a child. Before I ever started performing or the arts entertainment, I was a prolific painter.
Yeah, but you're an artist.
so that I had said, I researched it. I said, Parsons in New York, that's where I have to go. And they flat out said, no, we're not sending you from a small town to New York City. Well, if they had sent me to New York City in 1978, graduating in 1977, I'd be dead. That was the beginning of the AIDS.
That's when I came here. It was the late 70s.
So if they had sent me as this blonde, cute high school boy to New York City, I don't think I'd be here. So I actually have my parents. That made me very angry when they did it. But now I look back and go, I'm probably alive because they didn't feel like I should go to New York City from this small town in Texas. So I'm very, strangely, but I made it there. Within 10 years, I made it to New York. So
you were determined. Listen, everybody who finds themselves here, there's nothing that stops them. So where did you go to college? Were you still in a rural area, or you went to
no, it was halfway Missouri, halfway between Kansas City and St. Louis. It was a college town. It swelled by, I think, 50 or 60,000 students every fall. So it was, I mean, around it was rural. It was right above the Ozarks. So it was beautiful. But there was a lot of college stuff going on, you know.
Yeah.
That's where I really fell in love with ballet. I had 4 declared majors. I was a fine art, painting and drawing, voice, classical voice scholarship, a theater scholarship, and a dance scholarship. And to get the scholarships, I had to declare them all majors.
That's amazing.
I was taking 24 credits a semester, and of course I burned out. I mean, there was no way. I mean, everything was project oriented, and I never slept, and I was either memorizing a script or finishing an art project or rehearsing for the dance concert, or it was crazy. But the ballet, they were like, well, this one you can mark off your list because you're too old. You started too old. Well, don't ever throw a challenge at me like that, because I was like, oh no, I can do this. So the next freshman, the next 3 or 4 years, I tortured my body and I made it happen. And I was in a professional
It was late. That is late.
Very late. So I kind of focused on, eventually I was just focusing on the ballet completely. And by 1983, I was in a professional company, the first one.
Are you kidding? Wow. What was the name of the company?
Ballet Florida. It was in West Palm Beach in Florida.
Good location, Dolores.
It was, wasn't
Not too shabby.
I went to a lot of big fundraisers in Palm Beach. They used to send us out to entertain. Yeah. And from there, I met a choreographer came from the National Ballet of Venezuela and brought me twice as guest artist. So I spent a lot of time in South America.
Do you realize how good you have to be to have that happen?
I know. I got to perform at a gala for Margot Fontaine. That was the highlight of my career.
Oh
5,000 seat National Theater, 110-piece orchestra in the pit. I did a 12-minute male pas de deux to Gustav Mahler's Fifth Symphony. And it was very, very, very ahead of its time. I mean, 2 men touching each other and dancing an intimate pas de deux on stage. It was crazy, but I'd done that before I went there. That's what I could do it. So that's the reason he had brought me. And I got to tour all over South America. I was there twice. So that was amazing.
How incredible. So you're probably in your 20s at that age, yeah?
Yes.
And then what did you return to New York, and AIDS was raging?
Well, no, I hadn't been to New York yet. I had gone from Texas to Missouri to South Florida to South America.
And then South America.
And then I blew out my back. I was a power lifter, so I picked up all the ballerinas over my head, including men, for that one pas de deux. So I blew out my back. And when I've always been a photographer longer than almost anything since elementary. I mean, I've had a camera I can't remember when I didn't have a camera.
Wow.
So photography became for me in the fine arts area the way that I could bring everything together. You know what I mean? I got away from painting and drawing and that kind of art and got more into creating things with a camera, based on because I could be theatrical with it. I could photograph dancers. I could tie everything I did together with photography.
With an image, absolutely.
Yeah. And everything I started that while I was still in Missouri, but within months I was published in the Advocate, the National Advocate.
Oh wow!
I got published in, strangely enough, Blue Boy magazine. They did.
I remember Blue Boy.
You remember Blue Boy? 1983, I was in Blue. No, 1981.
Get out.
1981, I was in Blue. My work was in Blue Boy. I was not. Well, actually, I was in Blue Boy. Some of the pictures were self-portraits, but now that I think
the original selfie.
Why
not? Right, the original selfie.
I've done it all. I mean, at some point in the 80s, I modeled for all of those type of magazines because, I mean, the reality was
you were also a model.
I was a young, pretty blonde boy, so I worked it. I have to say, but when I had to quit dancing, Jack Mitchell. Do you remember Jack Mitchell, the dance magazine photographer? He worked on the Upper East Side.
I do remember him.
He came to Ballet, Florida to photograph the company. And my artistic director was like, show him your portfolio. And I was like, I am not showing the greatest entertainment photographer, dance photographer in the world my portfolio. She goes, yes, you are. And he offered me a job on the spot.
Wow.
On the spot, he offered me a job. Now, I think it was because I was talented, but it was also because I was a little bit of eye candy, I guess. So
I would think, Dolores, if you were gorgeous and blonde, I would probably say you were a bit of eye candy.
He goes, you know, my current assistant is moving to Paris to open his own studio. And I'm like, Paris, New York City, job on the Upper East Side. All these things are like, and I've never been to New York City, ever. I had no idea. So then I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And then that same week I met someone who was down vacationing, was a Broadway person, needed headshots, and I was advertising to do headshots. And he came and got his headshots done, and we hit it off, and it was, we had a fun week. And by the end of the week, he asked me to move to New York to live with him on West 83rd.
And you had a job.
And I had no idea where West 83rd was. I had no idea what of the Upper East Side meant. And I had a place to live and a job offered in the same week. So then I was like, okay, God, I get it.
You understand, right?
Clear message.
You were your total destiny to be here. I lived on 80th Street at the same time, 322 West 80th. Where were you?
I was just off Broadway on West 83rd.
I can't believe our paths never crossed back then.
We probably ran into each other on the street.
And we didn't even know. Oh my God. Yeah. And here we are on Triversity Talk bonding. So you were what, in your late 20s at that point?
27, 28.
Yeah. I'm
28, 29.
Yeah,
no,
I'm
28.
spot on with that. So you came to New York.
My boyfriend at the time also was from Connecticut, and his family still lived in New Haven. So that's the connection there. We were out in New Haven on the weekends. But I was in New York for 2 years. I mean, I keep saying I was a small boy from a little town in Texas. It's weird. I haven't gendered myself male in a long time. That was weird to just say that.
It's your past. I mean,
it's my past.
Past.
And we're talking about my past. So every day, like I think the first day was Jennifer Grey came in to get her headshots. And I'm like, wait, you're the girl Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing, right.
Dirty, it was like that year. And
she had a different nose then. Her nose
she had her original nose. And I was like, oh my God, I'm meeting Jennifer Grey. Every day it was like, and Joel, her father, got his pictures done. Everybody got their headshots by Jack. Lauren Bacall, all of the big ones. I remember a huge photo shoot that had like 20 people in it. It was all Broadway legends and current. Mary Martin was in the center.
Mary Martin.
And Mary Martin's from Weatherford, Texas, which was not far from my hometown. So I mean, that was a big deal to me to meet her. But it was crazy. It was a crazy 2 years of meeting. I never met anybody famous, and now my job was famous people every single day.
Isn't that amazing? It's interesting because you were no longer the spotlight as a dancer. No. You were taking care of everyone else that was in the spotlight.
I was the one in Horowitz's mansion across from Metropolitan Art Museum holding the light reflector while he played the piano and Jack photographed him with pictures of Stravinsky on the wall behind him. I mean, it was so insane the 2 years that I actually don't go back and think about it too much. It sounds crazy even talking about it, but it was a fantastic introduction to New York City, I have to say.
Oh my gosh.
Usually people come in and they come here with like I came with $800. They come here with not a lot of money and, they struggle. I had a lot of crummy jobs. I love the way you entered into New York.
I didn't have a lot of money, but I didn't necessarily need it with the situation I was in. The hard thing for me was that my boyfriend, our partner at the time, I literally was getting to know him when I moved there. I only knew him for a week before I moved sight unseen to New York City. He was a voice teacher from being on Broadway. So he was a voice teacher. So he had students.
Can you say his name?
Paul Elkin.
I know the name.
He was opposite Lauren Bacall in Woman of the Year.
Yep.
He was in Sugar Babies.
Big name. Wow.
Yeah. He was always up with the same roles for Mandy Patinkin, I think, because we used to run into Mandy on the street and they'd be like kind of cordial, but
yeah, right. But
a little bit of competition. But yeah, it was a crazy time, but it was cool.
Now you weren't doing drag back then, so
I had done drag before I left Florida, but I was not doing it in New York City.
Right.
It became like an event thing. It became like a Halloween thing, like all drag queens, you know.
Yeah,
you end up being asked to do a party or this or that. I didn't really come back to it for a few years where I was performing, and I got mostly asked to hostess things, you know, to host something because I could talk. Obviously, I can talk.
You can talk, Dolores.
I have the gift of gab. So.
I was like, I could see it. Yeah, yes.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be quiet. You two talk.
No. I want you to talk.
We want to hear about your life. You know,
I would want you to host something. Absolutely.
So yeah. I've done a lot of hosts. I mean, the mayor of Bridgeport asked me to host an event at Trevi Lounge, which is the gay bar in Fairfield, Connecticut, for his run for governor. So
I love that.
I hosted this big drag event at Trevi, and interestingly enough, he was pretty much the only candidate that got on the front page of the paper. Because I mean, he was surrounded by all these drag queens, which of course made great press.
Yeah.
He ultimately didn't. I don't think he got
to
run. No. But it was, you know, I was like, okay, this is nuts. I'm like doing, I don't know. It was, yeah, it's been things like that. I've been the host of the variety show for Greater Bridgeport Pride the last few years, and I'm doing that again. That's July 30th at the Bijou Theater downtown Bridgeport.
The Bijou in downtown Bridgeport. So I want to go back to New York because that was a very interesting time in New York. We're in the 80s now, right? Oh. And it was a painful time.
It was visceral.
Yeah.
You could almost the fear was palatable.
You could feel it in the streets. I remember walking along Christopher Street during that time. You could actually feel the death in the streets.
But well, like what I was saying about my partner was I couldn't go home till 10 o'clock. I got out of work at 4. So I had to kill a lot of time from 4 o'clock till 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday in New York City. So, I mean, I got to explore a lot of things. I almost always went straight to the Metropolitan Art Museum until they threw me out.
Right.
It was right there. It was right where I was going to cross the park. But, you know, it was, I mean, I don't know. New York was crazy in the 80s. The Saint. Do you remember going to the Saint?
I was one of the original people that went to the State. I actually had a card.
The Saint.
Yes, of course. The Saint, Crisco Disco, Flamingo, the Paradise Garage. I mean, it was.
What was the underground one that was like? What was that called? Remember the underground one? It was like in a. It's almost like
tunnel.
The tunnel.
Yeah. My God, Dolores, I remember all of them. But, you know, I've said this to friends of mine that were 10 years behind us. Their New York experience was totally different than ours because by the time the late 80s rolled around, I was so burnt out on AIDS. I didn't want to go to a club or a bar. And I have friends that were, you know, still partying then. Again, they were the next generation. They didn't get sick. They were that much more careful. But I couldn't look at a bar. I didn't want to go anywhere. All right. I
was very, 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 very lucky. And I did not contract HIV during that time. Right.
You were very, very lucky. Now, your partner that you were with at that time, he did contract HIV.
No. That was later in life.
It was later.
No, neither of us did.
You were.
Which is a miracle. Even back into the Florida years when I was dancing, I slept with the same. Listen to me talking about my.
Here we go.
I had the same partners.
Steven, here comes the juicy parts.
I had the same partners in common with many people that did contract HIV. Why didn't I contract HIV?
Right.
I don't know. You know, it wasn't like. There wasn't like use a condom back then in the late 70s, early 80s.
Nobody was using condoms back then.
It took a while for them to figure that out.
Right.
That this was a sexually transmitted disease. You know, so I was very lucky. I was very lucky to not contract that then. I did eventually contract it. And then, unfortunately, had a doctor who was a quack. And I, over a course of 4 years, had 2 missed tests.
Oh
my gosh.
So by the time, in a time when this shouldn't happen, in a time when you should be able to find it out easily, get tested easily, get, your insurance straightened out and get on medication, and you're fine.
You didn't have any of that happen.
I didn't have that happen. I got so sick. I had 2 tests. So and my partner at the time is the one that passed away of cancer, was like, you have HIV. And I'm like, I don't. Here's 2 test results. I don't. What is this? I can't. I became so sick. And finally, he insisted he take me to the Hartford Health Collective. And I found out in 20 minutes. Whereas it took my doctor 2 weeks to ever get her test result back. In 20 minutes, I found out that I was HIV positive.
I'm so confused. How did that happen? Was there any explanation?
My partner was HIV. How did the testing?
No, how did the test?
Yeah.
I don't know. He disappeared into the night. I don't know if he was sending them I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what I couldn't even find him to sue him. I mean, it was like
wow.
I'm
curious, Dolores, I
trusted my life in your hands, and you. And by that point, I was an HIV activist. I was involved with.
But then you find you were an HIV activist thinking that you were fine, and then you find out you have HIV. Was this, God, what a quack of a doctor. What year was this?
This would have been the beginning of that 16 years ago. 20 years ago.
20 years ago, we're already knee deep into having the cocktails. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. No,
that is unbelievable.
I should not have gotten sick. And unfortunately, I was sick long enough, and then I had to wait. Insurances were bad at the time.
They were.
And I was told, do not divulge this information until you've got insurance, because I didn't have any medical insurance.
Right.
So that took another 4 months. And by 4 months later, I was in the hospital with, I think, 33 T cells. I was on death's door.
In 2000, we are talking around 2000, Dolores. Then, right?
Yeah, it should not have happened.
That is just crazy.
And my fault for not being. I mean, I knew the symptoms. I should have, but I was like, I have 2 test results.
Bullshit. That's not what it is. Your fault.
Somebody tell me what's wrong with me. Why am I, you go into decline. Why is my health declining?
Right.
So I ended up in the hospital, and then I thought, I thought that was the end. I was 4 very, very sick days, and they managed to pull it back. But
by that time they could pull you back. Had that happened 10 years earlier, no. I mean, you would forget it. It would run into KS or PCP pneumonia.
Never. Now I've been undetectable for years.
Right.
Which means, U equals U. It's undetectable is untransmittable. And, I'm very much, there's an organization in New Haven that was APNH. It was originally AIDS Project New Haven. Now they've changed that to A Place to Nourish Your Health. I've been involved with them for many years as a client. And then I was on their board for a while. I was on 6 nonprofit boards at one time. I definitely was an overachiever.
Yeah.
When my partner got cancer, I quit all of them to manage the cancer.
That's what you had to.
Yeah. It became very necessary. But I've been very, very involved with APNH still. The brunch I'm doing this Sunday is a fundraiser for the New Haven Pride Center, and the brunch in July 25th is a fundraiser for APNH, A Place to Nourish Your Health.
Dolores, when you go deep inside yourself, what is the reason it's so important to you to give back? I'm so impressed with the amount that you give.
I think it has something to do with how many of my friends died.
Yeah.
I lost a partner in the 80s to AIDS that, I then had the great love of my life. I mean, we were wildly involved with it. It was Sassy Saltimboca was her name. And she was transitioning at the end of life. Her focus became transition before she died. And I kind of, it was a hard 10 years.
That's hard.
And there were issues all along. I mean, when born a hemophiliac, contracted HIV as like an under 10-year-old from the Red Cross blood supply. One of the first diagnosed in the country.
Wow.
But managed to live. was in a hate crime and had a crippled foot, ended up having an well, when they were with me, they'd never been with anybody that she said that she trusted enough to have the surgery she needed. So she, had an amputation, got a high heel foot, got back to drag, had a hip replacement. She could dance again.
Got back to drag.
She was quite the sensation. You'll have to look up some of her videos. She was a phenomenal performer.
Yeah, when we finish this, if you can send me the links, I would love.
I will. Sassy Salter. A lot of the New York
story.
court knew her. We used to go. We were members of the Connecticut court. We used to go to Night of 1,000 Gowns.
Right, it's an amazing event that the court has.
Yeah. She was in Paprika Swirl, either Step Up or Step Down. I can't remember, and we were so excited about it.
Wow.
So
Wendy, go ahead.
Sorry, Dolores, but I wanted to pop in. We have a question.
Oh, cool. Absolutely.
From Simone Krauts, also from Triversity, the Pride Center, because I don't think Simone had switched over to her account yet. But it is, so this is going to be two-parter. How different did you find it coming out trans in today's world compared to coming out as gay years ago? Do you find more prejudices now or then?
This is a good question. And there's several parts to it. Coming out trans for me, well, my transitioning story is interesting because if we'd had the language when I came out, I would have probably chose non-binary 45 years ago.
Wow.
Because 2 years ago, my life really fell apart, and it turned out. I'm going to jump around here.
It's fine.
When Sassy died, I went into this depression that I don't remember the year after. I have very few memories of the year after, and they started coming back a little bit, but I didn't realize over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, which is recent, the last 4, from 2015 till 2019, I pretty much lost the ability to read and comprehend what I was reading. And I was so depressed, but still functioning, that I didn't realize what I wasn't doing.
Wow.
Running a nonprofit organization, and things got, it got out of hand. But what turned out, the ultimate problem was, and when I talk about this, I start to stutter. And I get emotional. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You're with us.
You can be undetectable in your blood, but they found out in my generation, which is the first generation, 60 to 70-year-olds, you can still be detectable in your spinal fluid.
Yes.
And it was circulating my brain, and my brain was being affected.
Oh my gosh.
So I couldn't transmit it. It was still undetectable equals untransmittable, but it was in my spinal fluid. So I had a lot of spinal taps and MRIs, and basically I'm now back. I've reversed all of that, and I'm on my way back. But I hit rock bottom, and some people took advantage, and I ended up with nothing. My car had been stolen. I lost my apartment. My businesses failed. Well, it's a whole story. But some of that was being taken advantage of, and some of it was my inability to function and even know that I wasn't functioning correctly.
Right.
And so it involved, by the time it had all transpired, I was going for walks and getting lost, having amnesia blips, waking up, being in emergency rooms. And it got really, really dark and really, really bad. And I ended up panic attacks. And this is so not me. I've always been somebody that can smile my way through everything, even when it's horrible. I can find a way to
But you had suffered great loss of a great love.
Yeah, horribly. And then this happened slowly over the next few years, and I just didn't recognize it at all. And had some situations where, some people took advantage, and I AP&H saved the day. I got into some intense therapy, and I still love my therapist. Everybody should have a therapist.
What does AP&H stand for? I always like to know.
A place to nourish your health. AP&H.
That was the place you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. And through this therapy and my wonderful therapist, I came to realize that I was something other than male. I'd gone through my partner transitioning, but I never thought about transitioning. I never thought about transitioning my entire life. Never once.
It had nothing to do with you. Your partner was and
it had nothing to do with me wanting to be a girl. I never had wanted to be a girl my entire life. I knew I was fluid. I knew I loved doing drag, but I was a gay man and I liked gay men, and that was my life. That was my attraction. But in the therapy, I came to realize that I never thought, I remember the day, I was like, you mean people think of themselves as one or the other? And he was like, well, yes, generally. And I was like, I have never had a conscious thought that I'm a man. And I've never had a conscious thought that I was a woman. He said, well, then you're non-binary, two-spirited. And I'm like, well, I can't be two-spirited. I'm not Native American. And the more I got to thinking about it, the more it made sense. And I came out as non-binary fall of 2019 for about 6 weeks. And I was like, no, this isn't it either. And I said, I'm going to go the full tilt and say, I'm transitioning. I need to transition. I'm going to transition to female. And almost immediately there was such a weight off my shoulders.
That's really interesting. What is interesting that nothing had come before. There was no feeling about being born into the wrong body. There was no other than drag. There wasn't any feminine identification.
I always was fluid. I was always the little flamboyance. I was always pegged for gay. Nobody ever. Always.
I hear that.
Always. So, and I didn't mind that. I kind of I lived it up. I didn't try to make people think otherwise. It was part of my being an activist. So I was like, I don't have to act differently for you. I don't need to walk differently for you. I don't need to try to talk differently for you. This is who I am. Deal with it. So ultimately, who I am is who you see now. And I'm who I am. I am now being who I am. And it feels that way. And I didn't realize until I made that decision and started presenting female every day that, well, it's actually, I did an episode on Bravo where I had to be Dolores Degage 3 days in a row at a campsite in Connecticut. And I was brought there to be Dolores the whole 24 hours a day for 3 days. And that's the first time I ever did that. And by the end of that weekend, and I came home, I was like, I'm never going back. I had 3 of the most glorious days.
Glorious days.
And I didn't realize until that Monday when I woke up and I knew I was going to be Dolores from then on. I woke up happy, truly glad to open my eyes and be awake. And I realized I had never, ever experienced that in my entire life.
Wow.
My baseline was sad. And I didn't realize it because it had always been my baseline. I had happiness, great happiness. I always was high-spirited, and I'm always my mantra has been love and optimism for years and years and years. I've said love and optimism.
Of course.
Love and optimism is going to get you through anything you needed to get you through. And accepting less is I just never did. But at the same time, like for the last 2 years, I've woken up I'm glad I woke up, and I didn't realize I had never felt that way before until I was feeling it.
So would you say it's amazing what you've told us. Would you say your therapist really helped you discover this within yourself?
Very much.
What a blessing, right? That happened.
Huge blessing. Yeah, no, I kiss my new life every day. I'm so happy with it.
I love that. I kiss my new life every day. It's great.
I never said that before. I don't know where that came from, but maybe I said, no, I'm not going to say that. He's married. I can't say that about my therapist. I do love him. He knows that.
I can't wait to see you perform more. I can't wait to work with you more. You inspire me. I'm sure you inspired Stephen, and you inspired everybody watching here tonight. Your story is a story that has to be told.
My thing would be to everybody is just live your truth.
That's it.
You're going to be happier if you live your truth. And let the pieces
fall
where they'll fall, and you will find your advocates, find the people that support you. Mine are trickling back a little bit now. Every
Good.
now and I've gained some new. I've gained the ones that I've gained that are new are so strong in my life.
Right.
You know, it's a beautiful thing. If you live your truth and I'm real. I'm just
you
real. I am so real. And I can say it. Live your truth. It's going to change. It's going to change your life for the better if you'll just live your truth.
I love it.
And I know some places you can't still, but if you can,
right.
Yeah, exactly. If
and
you
fight
can
the
do
good
it
fight.
faithfully.
Let's fight the good fight and get this better.
Right.
Absolutely. Well,
We have
well,
gone over. I'm sorry. I do talk.
Oh, please. No, I am glad.
Love you, yes, Dolores. Thank you so much for what you
Maybe
gave
we'll
us
have to have a part
tonight.
2 sometime. Wendy, you're amazing. I've loved meeting you. Your energy is infectious.
Well, thank you. The pleasure was all mine. And we will see each other again in person. I'm sorry I'm not going to see you for Pride on Sunday. I'll be in New York. You'll be in Connecticut, but
Well, the New Haven Pride Center's Pride is in September. We don't do it. We do a whole week in September.
oh, that's great.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to get you to come out and perform at one of my brunches.
I would totally love that. That's so great.
And he's opening Sol de Cuba Sono at the new Sono Mall in Norwalk is opening. That's a hop, skip, and a jump on the train for you from New York.
So that's okay. So we have some shout outs. That's great. Dolores, love you to death. Thank you for tonight. Thank you, audience, for being here. Perfect for Pride. I love that you're here. I love that it's
Anybody
Pride.
can Instagram me, Facebook me, ask me a question, messenger me.
Yep, and I can vouch that Dolores will answer.
I will.
She is
Awesome.
very active on social media,
It
including
was lovely to meet you.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight. And we hope to continue the discussion on our webpage. But in the meantime, good night, everybody. And
Good night, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.